with computers in pretty much every person's pocket, whether we realize it or not. For a long time, it was getting your news solely from a newspaper, the radio, of course. But now, with a glut of information available 24 hours a day to everybody, how can we teach our young people, but also perhaps ourselves as well, to know the difference between real news and fake news, to understand which difference between satire, clickbait, propaganda? Well, we are bringing in the experts today. Katie Hendry's with us. She's grade 5 homeroom teacher of literacy and English at the Dwight School here in Dubai. And that's exactly what they're teaching their students. So one for the podcast, if your kids aren't listening now, and do feel free to share this information with them. It is absolutely a part of living in and navigating a world of 24-hour news and people who are often out to deceive. Katie, thank you so much for being with us today. Why did you feel like this was such an important topic to be relaying to your students?
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is so important nowadays because, like you said, students and younger people, they get the news from scrolling through their media platforms or maybe news channels, and being able to differentiate real news from fake news is so important. And especially when it comes to IB schools, where inquiry-based projects are the core of the curriculum. So yeah, we focus a lot on fake news and academic honesty in order for them to be successful.
We certainly don't want to, demonize technology or social media. This is very much where, children's time and attentions are spent right now. So it's much like, me growing up in the 80s being taught how to cross the road safely or how to put a seatbelt on. Teaching children how to interpret information is absolutely key. Are you able to tell us a little bit about what happens in lessons? What is the first thing that you think it's so important for students to understand about fake news?
Definitely. So how we tackle it at our school is it's not just the teachers teaching it, but we are in close contact with our librarian, who really digs deep into what are the strategies you can use in order to find out if a source is reliable or if it's an official source and an unofficial source. And we always kind of go by 5 tips for the students, breaking it down in different steps that you can almost follow to make sure that whatever source that you found is reliable and worthy of research. So we always say check the source and its author. Is the source reliable? What about the author? Has the author written more articles about the topic? Can you find and check if the same information is written by a different author as well? So if it's not just one person claiming a certain thing, that often gives away if it's a good source or not. And then we say pay attention to headlines and bylines, because often headlines are used to draw in readers, and the headlines do not always necessarily link to what is in the source itself. So once you start reading the article,
so true.
I know this from experience myself. You click on something and it's something completely different to what the headline says,
or it's data that's been completely manipulated to encourage that click, or an expert has been quoted out of context. And actually experts is a really good one as well, checking who is that source of information, aside from the writer. Who is the expert that's quoted? Are they legit, or have they got a university certificate from the internet?
Yeah, and then that's one step to actually looking at yourself. But there's so many brilliant websites for that as well, like factcheck.org and Snopes.com, where they can actually put in the link of the article that they found and check if it's a reliable source. And that's where the teachers and librarians come in again as well. Like they teach the skills, but we are also experts, of course, so they can come to us and double check. The thing that we are really trying to teach is this intrinsic skill. Like, just use your own judgment a little bit as well. Like, when you are reading something, does it feel like it's reliable? Does it feel like it's actually something that is true? And if you already have some doubts yourself, then maybe you should start looking into it a little bit more.
Be teaching our children from a really young age, asking the right questions, developing that critical mindset, and not just accepting everything as fact. Mm-hmm. And we're in a time now, and this happens a lot around vaccinations, unfortunately, internationally. Fake news being spread through WhatsApp, dubious links, and even grown-ups who we think of ourselves all as being pretty sophisticated consumers of media, but whether it is not realizing a photo has been photoshopped, to the hilt on Instagram, or not understanding we're being manipulated by a so-called news source, we all need to be questioning everything as much as possible. And you're absolutely right that that verified news source, such as the ARN News Centre, is absolutely crucial. And I think the tough thing is for many kids, looking at the internet, I'm sure they just assume an adult has written it, therefore it's trustworthy. And we don't want to make students distrustful of people, but as I said, that critical thinking is a really difficult thing to impart, I'm sure, as a teacher.
Exactly, and it's for them to realize anyone can put anything on the internet. Like, they could create a website themselves of just anything that they thought of without researching, and then somebody could find that website and use it as a reliable source. It's about creating that awareness of the footprint that they leave on the internet, and how other people do that as well, and finding out what the difference is between something that is actually reliable and has been researched and put together in an article like that from a student that is interested in a topic and just made a website out of it.
And what age do you think it's useful to start talking to our kids about this?
We start talking about this from a very young age because we are an inquiry-based school and they are using the internet to find articles. Of course, to a grade 1 student, you don't talk about clickbait and about those technical vocabulary, but we do try to start with this from a very young age, so it's not something that they suddenly are introduced to when they are in the upper part of primary. So, for example, I teach grade 5, and they are 10, 11 years old, and this is where it is so important to have these skills already, because we do a big project called the PYT exhibition, where the students, they choose their own topic and they research it, they become experts, and then at the end there's a big exhibition. So we don't want the students to come to grade 5 and suddenly be new to all of this, all these concepts. This is something that we want to really start introducing when they are young, so it's something that they experience throughout the primary years program.
Check it before you spread it. That was Katie Hendry, grade 5 homeroom teacher and literacy and English teacher at Dwight School here in Dubai, where children are being taught how to spot fake news. If you've been getting in touch with your Sunday